Chop it down. Chop it down. Chop it down. You gon' chop it down. Chop it down. You gon' chop it down. Damn, set, watch him throw the ball. We gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through fourth and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Die.
Ooh, wrong screen, but you can hear me though. Welcome back to another episode of Trap or Die podcast, man. I am your host, Mual, Coach Mual, Hendo Mual, all that good stuff, man. And listen, we are here previewing Commander Seahawks this episode. Hey, Brad, if this yak got in your eye, that'd been a problem. I see AJ in the back row. Backstage. We're gonna bring him up in a second. But administrative items. If you are new to the Trap or Die podcast, we definitely appreciate you tapping in for the first time. Give us a like or a follow, depending on which platform you listen to. Subscribe. If you haven't given a rating or review on the podcast side, we definitely appreciate you doing so. We see the Spotify side going up too in terms of reviews, or ratings. So we definitely appreciate that. Film session. Al 2, what's going on with you, big dog? Film session. This week won't be on YouTube, but it will be on. And it was supposed to be out today, but it's gonna be out tomorrow. But film session will be up on the Hogs Haven platform tomorrow. I can't even tell you what time, but it's gonna be before 1 p.m. 1 p.m. Eastern. But yeah, we'll have a film session up this week. Just won't be on the YouTube side. And I think that is that for administrative items. You know, we have Stacy Joe Ross that's checking in from the Seattle side of things. She was on, if you are OG Trap or Die member, as Hawk calls them, the morning trappers or the trappers. Stacy was on a couple seasons ago when Washington played them at home on Monday night, I believe. And that conversation was so interesting because like she got us hip to like how serious the conversation and situation was with Russell Wilson in Seattle. And a few months later, that man is on his way to Denver. So she's going to be joining us a little bit later in the show. We'll chop it up with her, get her thoughts on post Russell Wilson era and into the Geno Smith era. Magic, what's going on with you, big dog? Let's go ahead and bring AJ up, see how AJ is doing, talk some ball. You know, it's also another thing that's actually, what you doing, bro? It's another thing that's actually throwing me because I wasn't on Twitter that much today, but what did I walk into? I walked into debates about Sam Howell saving Rivera's job. I don't know what everybody's been saying online. I can't tell you. I don't know too much about it, but I'll have some. I got some thoughts on that. Also ran into a Sam Howell stat that John Kahn posted, so I want to talk about that as well for a second. But anyway, AJ is checking in right now. What's going on with you, big dog? How you feeling?
Hey, not much, man. Just glad to be here. See another day. Just ready to talk some ball.
Yes, sir, man. That's always a blessing. Seeing another day, man. I can't even complain about that either. It's crazy that you mentioned that because like some things happening in my close circle that some people are going through, like a real situation. So like you saying that now. It's a very simple thing, but like people don't realize like sometimes that type of shit hold weight, bro. So I am very blessed and fortunate to be here. So I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to dive too deep on the podcast with that situation, but you're not wrong at all, man. Al 2, I see you. Magic, I see you. Monty, I see you. Hey, the morning show. Look, man, the audit picked up, bro. Y'all don't even know what I do, but yeah, I gotta, I gotta the day job, bro. It didn't took over. Just put it that way. But I don't think it's out the morning show. I don't think it's gone just yet, man. Unfortunate news is we may be getting furloughed next week, but I gotta find a way to stay busy. So there you go. If we get furloughed, you kind of figure out, you can kind of put the clues together. I may be back around for the morning shows, man. Okay. So, like I said, Stacey's gonna be joining us soon. But in the meantime, let's catch up on some Commanders news. AJ, have you been online today at all?
Yeah, I've been online, but I ain't even gonna front, bro. I've been trying to disengage as much as possible, unless it's this show with Sam Howell.
There's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah, I hate talking about mid so much, bro. Like, so you know how I am. Like, at the end of the day, I'm not trying to hear nobody arguments about no top 15. I ain't trying. I did see a tweet. I think maybe Grant Paulson started it. Honestly, that's probably where I seen the tweet. I think he either highlighted an article or something in reference to Ron Rivera's job could possibly be saved by Sam Howell's play. I don't really know.
Oh, that's where
I
it
could
started.
be speaking inaccurately, but either way, you got to be a complete blind fool. You got to be Stevie Wonder, Ray Charles, any blind man or woman if you think Ron Rivera has a chance to save his job and stay for another year. Yeah, because I was seeing, I think even before today, I seen a couple tweets or whatever from like media pundits even projecting that, you know, what Josh Harris has done in the past with the 76ers or the Devils. I'm like, those are two different sports. Like, two different sports. There's no way in hell Ron Rivera can save his job. And I said this before we even got into wins and losses counting.
So let's kind of peel back the onion and let's peel back the onion from a perspective of like, how can it get done? And then also the reasons why it won't get, or the reasons why it likely won't get done, right? There, one thing I learned, and I actually learned this from Dre, so it's kind of crazy, you know, he ain't here just yet. Oh, boom, there you go. Perfect timing. Because I was just about to bring up something that I learned from him a long time ago. Been following that man for a minute. Let's go ahead and bring Dre on. Boom, there he goes. Dre, what's going on with you, big dog? How you feeling, bro?
It's good, bro. Man, how y'all feeling, man? Everything good?
Everything good, man. I was going to text you, but I'd rather just show you, you ain't the only. I don't know what you on today, but you know what I'm saying? You ain't the only one on this episode. My brother.
Hey,
say no more.
I appreciate
I'm
you
mixing
for
a little
that,
bit. You know, I don't really do the mixing, but today I'm doing it, man, just to get through the show. But look though, so we were in a conversation about like, so I wasn't on Twitter that much today, background. And when I opened up Twitter, like before we started the show, just catching up on what people were saying, I ran into conversations about Sam Howell, like the idea, not necessarily it actually happening, but the idea of Sam Howell possibly saving Ron's job. And we're getting into that right now in the sense of Dakota move. In the sense of like laying out how it can happen, and then also laying out likely why it won't happen, right? And I remember this conversation that you said online when Washington, Josh Norman had just got cut from the Carolina Panthers, and I was like, bro, it's not happening. Like I was sold that it wasn't happening, and I never forget your tweet, bro. Dre, you said, I shouldn't say verbatim. I mean, it's not verbatim, but you basically said, never say never. You don't know what's about to happen with Josh Norman. Just like you were just telling the fan base, like, don't say never, because like you had knew that there was a chance. Lo and behold, Washington signed him, things like that. And AJ, to bring this all the way back around, is there's always a way that Ron can stay. I don't think that when you talk about percent chance, we ain't talking about like a 90% chance that he stays. Like it may be like 3 to 5%, maybe 10%. And depending on the way the rest of the season go, he may even bump it up to 20%. But I think one of the ways that you look at Ron Rivera and how he's handling this season, is like you really have to, first and foremost, it's not going to be about statistics anymore. Like your offense isn't a top 10 unit, your defense isn't a top 10 unit. You don't have anything to stand on in terms of like a unit on either side of the football, right? But at this point, it just comes down to winning games for Ron. But you got to look good at winning games. You got to find a way to make your way into the playoffs, but not only make your way into the playoffs, you got to win a football game in the playoffs. And I think that's going to be your strongest pitch ever for Ron Rivera, despite what he says in the media about like Sam Howell doing this, Sam Howell doing that. We're building around Sam Howell, and it's all about his development. Despite everything that he's saying in the media, at this point in the season, knowing how both units have been inconsistent, let alone the defense just completely failing you for the most part of the season, you just got to win. I think that's the only way that you stay in terms of whether it's like head coaching role or even in another capacity. That's the only way that you find yourself in year 5 with the Washington Commanders. I'm going to hand the floor to you all. Again, we're talking about, we're going to go to the other side, but we're talking about ways in which he can actually stay. And I give the floor to y'all. What do y'all think about at least how I said it, or if you all have anything else?
I mean, I'll stay consistent with what I've been saying since the season ended and we knew that ownership change was coming, that there is no way in hell that Ron Rivera can save his job. Because even if you want to bring in a infrastructure of player personnel manager, GM, whatever the case is, that's not their guide. And from a philosophy standpoint, what we've seen from Ron Rivera before even coming to Washington and his tenureship in Washington, it's going to be very hard for him to align himself with a general manager that is of this century, that has a different type of approach and doesn't come from the Carolina Panthers thought process of how they did things, and is someone that would ultimately be his boss. In his dynamic right now in Washington, he's essentially Mark Mayhew and Mark Hurney's boss. That's just the way it is. They answer to him instead of him answering to them, because he's the one that brought them into the fold. So just even from that dynamic, whether they could win the rest of their games or not, the ownership group is just looking at the total package. I mean, what do you do? What do you bring to the table? Either way, Ron is still in a position to get his money. You feel me? Go chill out at a beach. Maybe go visit the Bahamas. Go see some family, At the end of the day, he will not be the head coach of the Washington Commanders or whatever the name will be going forward. There's no way in hell that you could possibly bring this man back. And if they even slightly have thought of that or plan to do that, I will sit here and say they will lose me and many of others as a fan of this organization.
Well, I just want to acknowledge one thing, man. AJ, you do a really good job of entertaining what's the word? Long shot possibilities on this show with the Washington Commanders, and you do a really good job of that and bringing that to the forefront about what they should do, even though it's unlikely. And for you, after we just said we were going to do the pros and the cons of how Ron can stay versus like why he likely will go, and for you your first words to say he ain't staying, that's not surprising, but it's also like, Brad, we was going to get to that point on the con side.
Now
you could have waited 2 minutes, bro.
I can't even play the pro game with Ron Rivera. Like I'm not gonna waste our time or my time or the words. Like I'm not about to fake like he got a shot. Like I said, if this ownership group thinks that they should continue going with him for an additional year, they officially have lost a fan in me, and many of others that spend their money with the team are going to disengage themselves from this organization altogether.
What's to say What's
There's
to
no
say
way.
that? What's to say that they don't strip him of everything except for coaching? Like, what's to say that they don't entertain that?
They will lose me. I don't care. They could put.
I'm not about you, but I'm saying, like, what's to say that
they
I see. Hey, there you go again. I'm offering you an
I know,
option to entertain the conversation.
Hear me out.
And you
they could put Ron Rivera in the Major Tutty costume, bro, and I still will disengage from this organization. They could dress him up. They could demote him. They could make him a parking attendant at FedEx Field, bro. If he has anything to do with this regime going forward or any association next year, I am out. Deuces.
Well, look,
what you thinking, man?
All right, so I mean, and I'm almost. Funny thing is, Mual, I'm almost with AJ on this, in that I don't really see any pros to Ron stand, but I will entertain the question. I mean, the real pro to it, I guess, if you hypothetically say you take away all of his duties, is that you're keeping, If the new GM, you strip him of his GM duties, you get a new GM in, and he says, all right, we'll keep Ron for one more year. You're at least keeping Sam Howell in a familiar system. Maybe that gives him more confidence going forward. I mean, that's the biggest pro I can see from it, is that you're not giving Sam Howell something different or something new to learn. Granted, or assuming that new management wants Sam Howell or wants to at least, keep him around and give him that chance. That doesn't change. But as far as his coaches' percentages of being here, I think the percentage is the same as it was before the season started, which is very little. Like, I think a lot right has to happen for Ron to come back. And a lot right is things that hasn't usually gone right here. I mean, either whether it's before Ron or while Ron is here. I mean, we've seen the Ron Rivera era. We've seen what happens in it. They usually hover around 7 wins, 8 wins, somewhere around there. And right now they're kind of on that pace or on that trajectory to go there. So they have to go out. They have to go to the playoffs for Ron to kind of stay around. They have to also, I think, win a playoff game, at the very least, win one playoff game to have Ron even in that conversation of coming back next year. But I mean, I just can't see it. I mean, like I said, it's just such a small chance because, I mean, if we've been following this team in the Ron era, we kind of see where this is going. I mean, the writing has been on the wall this season. So, I mean, I really don't see much of a chance of it happening. But hey, to play the pro game again, I think the pro would be that you keep Sam Howell in a familiar system. Maybe you build on that. You get a new GM to bring players in. Ron doesn't do much coaching as it is anyway. Right now, everything is a delegation thing. I mean, the only thing you got to worry about with him is the clock management, the game management. But all of that, like I said, that ties into just he shouldn't be around anymore.
Hey, bro, it's so funny because, like, I know where I stand. Like, he don't stand a shot in hell to be back next year. But it's like, I think being blindsided by other possibilities. First off, note what I said. The possibility of Washington even becoming a really good team, good enough to make the playoffs and have like top 10 production from this point on until the end of the season in the offensive side or defensive side, that is a long shot within itself. Now, actually, you know what? I would say it's a long shot defensively. But I wouldn't put it past them to start creeping up in that top 10 range offensively if you start seeing some production, like some consistent production from Sam and Bieniemy and that whole offense all together. Here's another question, because I'm gonna move on from Ron Rivera. Al2 said it best. Ron sucks as a head coach. He sucks as a GM. Like,
that's what I was gonna ask. Is he a better head coach or GM? Like,
he ain't good at either.
He sucks.
He ain't good at either, bro.
He's had very little to do here in his time here. Everything has been delegated. Like I said, really the only coaching you kind of expect him to do is the lineup changes, the clock management stuff. And like, he hasn't done good at that. So it's like, I'm just ready to just sweep him up out of here, man.
All right. So here's my thing. Because I mentioned it was something that I was thinking about throughout the day. Have we ever seen, because AJ used, before you got on Drake, AJ used the word mid to describe Sam Howell, right? And I was thinking about the game that CJ Stroud had against the Buccaneers this past week, right? Nearly 500 yards passing, What, 5 touchdowns or was it 4 touchdowns? I don't remember.
I think it was
5.
He threw for like 470, either 4 or 5 touchdowns. I can't remember.
470, 400, yeah, crazy game, right? 475 touchdowns, right? I'm gonna ask y'all this question. You don't have to know for a matter of fact. We're spitballing here, right off the top of our head. Do you know any quarterback in recent memory who has thrown for 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, and be mid? Like, have we ever seen that? Have you ever seen a quarterback like play like not even? I would say, with matter of fact, I'll leave it there because I don't want to confuse anybody. Like, have you ever seen a quarterback play that to that level and then think that they're like a mid quarterback? Like, that seems like a lot that you're getting done in one game. I get a floor to y'all. What about you all? Have y'all seen that?
I was gonna ask, what was Matt Flynn's numbers in Green Bay? Like,
I remember that game before he went to Russ Wilson. He threw for 400 yards. And that's why I was like, I didn't want to. That's literally the game that I was thinking about. I don't want to confuse y'all because it's like his was out the blue, and like he wasn't really a starter. He came in for one game, and he had sporadic starts when Aaron Rodgers was having his little injuries and stuff like that. But he came in for one game and did numbers against Detroit. That's why I was like, I didn't want to like confuse people, but like somebody who's actually a starter or a young starter, and put those numbers up like CJ Stroud. Have you ever seen somebody do 470? 4 touchdowns, and I just want to say over 400 yards in multiple touchdowns, and they be mid.
Off the top of my head, Andy Dalton.
You think Andy was mid, bro?
Hell
yeah. When he was younger.
Yeah, he was never a top 10 quarterback. So
all right, then that's fair. Yeah.
He was. We would never said that. Never.
Yeah. Okay. But I thought he was consistently. But I thought he was consistently like he was never a terrible quarterback. Like Andy, that's kind of why I'm confused. Like he was consistently like he'll give you average to an elite game. Like it was nothing like where it was always bad with him. That's kind of where I was stuck at. But yeah, I don't disagree. He wasn't top 10.
We bringing this up on the fly, so it's like we don't have no research ahead of time. But I'm trying to see
AJ. Well, I mean, I know I'm about to say, I know we debunked the Matt Flynn thing.
Well, Ryan Fitzpatrick has done it, I believe, from what I pulled up.
How many touchdowns? Did he
but I'm talking about young. Like, was he young?
Young.
Yeah.
Possibly Matt Schaub.
Come on, Matt wasn't ass though.
But he was mid. He wasn't never elite. Yeah. Matt Schaub was never elite.
Maybe I think he just needs another opportunity. But Jameis Winston.
Well, see, that's funny you bring that up because I think Sam's season is kind of looked like a Jameis Winston season in the
Hey, that ain't 400 though, Mike. I mean, Al too. He did. Mike White had a couple 300 yard games.
Let me just spout off. I know we debunked the Matt Flynn thing.
No, I'm gonna get there. No, hell no, he ain't throw for 400. No.
Yeah, I'm sitting here confused. I'm like this.
I know. I'm gonna get to my point. I want us to brainstorm right now before I get to my point.
But I was going to say that Matt Flynn, that one game we're talking about, had 480 yards, 6 touchdowns in the game.
He had 480 in that Detroit game?
Yeah, 480 and 6 touchdowns
in the snow, bro. Game. Oh, my Lord. I ain't even know it was that high. I didn't know it was close to 500. That's crazy. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I mean, like I said, we debunked him, but I get that, though. Yeah, go ahead.
Here's my thing, bro. I don't know of any young quarterbacks like CJ Stroud who did it, who thrown for over 400 yards, had 4+ touchdowns, and they turned out to be ass or mid. Like, to do like that level of production as a young quarterback, bro, like that is a talent within itself where you look at them and say, yeah, we got something in a guy. Like 400 yards is 400 yards, no matter how you slice it. And now, what I'm about to insert into the conversation that is not necessarily, there's no basis to say this will happen. There's no factual evidence to say that it will happen. Sam Howell's gotten close to 400 yards a couple times, right? And I think in both those games, though, Washington lost. I don't have the numbers up in front of me right now, but I think both those games Washington lost. But I think my thing is with Sam is he's gotten close a few times, and it's not damn. I hope I hope y'all didn't hear that. It's not because he couldn't
26. Like, what's good?
It's not because he's a terrible quarterback, right? It's not because like they're behind 1,000 points and he's just playing catch up and these numbers are accumulating, right? I think the Philly game, the last Philly game, he was close to 400, and I'm about to double check that one because I think he was close to 400.
And reason I was going to say he was is because someone on Twitter was having last week after the Eagles game, people were trying to tell me I should be convinced of him. And they were like, well, how many quarterbacks throw for almost 400 yards in a Washington uniform? So I know he was close to 400 in the game.
I'm looking at it now. He actually had 397. So 397, 3 yards away from 400. And if you complete that pass to Terry in overtime, you're over 400 yards. And you're probably talking about a game-winning field goal or maybe a game-winning touchdown. Who knows? But I'm saying all that to say, when you see those numbers, it was a long way of getting to AJ and asking him a question. How do you look at a quarterback as mid, or excuse me, not even that? Do you think a young quarterback like a CJ Stroud or Sam Howell throwing for over 400 yards because he's gotten close twice? The last one was 388 against the Chicago Bears, and that was the loss. The Philly game was the second one where he went for 397. But do you look at a young quarterback who's thrown for over 400 yards in a win and 4+ touchdowns as a person who's mid? That's very hard to do. No matter what quarterback you are.
Mual, to your point, I was going to say it's hard to do, but he's throwing the ball a lot. He gets a lot of opportunities to kind of get these yards.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. Like that's kind of their system, bruh. And I actually insert that opinion when people talk about he's second in the passing yards. But even still, to be second in passing yards is a lot to do. Like you could be a pass first offense and still be like bottom 12 or bottom 15 as a passer.
Think it's all circumstantial, right? When we go back to Sunday and look at CJ Stroud's game, like he threw for 5 touchdowns, 470 yards on 42 attempts. The ball was distributed all over the field to a variation of targets. He also led that team to come back to win. I don't know if it went to overtime or not, but it was a last-second touchdown that gave them the victory. So he played his ass off. Like, I mean, a perfect quarterback rating, essentially. Like, at the end of the day, it looks different. So for me, I guess I'm not one of those guys that are like so caught up in the stats or whatever, but I don't know what we're really trying to hit home at. We kind of know.
No. My thing is, if you're confused, my thing is when you look at CJ Stroud, like even what you said just now, bro. Like there is evidence that backs up Sam Howell distributes the ball to a lot of receivers on a given Sunday. Like we know that. So my thing is when I'm looking at these numbers, and again, I said this was something that I was thinking about today. It wasn't like I'm thinking about the CJ Stroud day, and I'm like, damn, like I don't remember a quarterback so young. Like Kirk Cousins did it a couple times. I would say a couple times here in Washington. I don't know the exact number, but he was already old enough. And on top of that, like we kind of assume we know who Kirk Cousins is as a quarterback, right? But like you haven't seen a young quarterback, 23, 22 years old in Washington, who's able to do something to the extent of what CJ Stroud did in a win. I'm acknowledging like he had 2 losses, but like he's come close to these numbers that CJ Stroud put up on Sunday. And that's where I'm like, that man, it's a matter of time till he do it. And it's a matter of time till he do it and he wins. And that's why I'm like, bro, like, do you think a quarterback, a mid quarterback can do something like that, bro? It's not like the system is setting him up to make some easy throws and people taking off for 50 yards. Like he making some big time throws in a given game. Like that shit is different.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I still go back to it's circumstantial. Is who you're playing defensively. Like, let's say, for example, if Sam Howell put up 475 touchdowns against the Arizona Cardinals, it doesn't hold the same weight as doing it against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and especially with their defensive-minded coach and a Todd Bowles and what they do from a schematic standpoint. At the end of the day, I feel like some people could be in that situation of having that type of game, but ultimately what we're asking out of the quarterback position is just to be consistent. Like for CJ Stroud, this is his first year. We already know who he is. He's always been a fast processor. He's been a pocket passer that, for him, he got kind of pushed up and elevated a little bit more because of what we've seen him do outside of the pocket against Georgia. But he's always been a pocket passer, a fast processor, getting the ball out of his hands quick. I still think the argument could be some people could say CJ Stroud is mid. Like, at the end of the day, it all boils down to the consistency standpoint. I
will say the Buccaneers defense is 29th in the NFL, bro.
Say that again?
The Buccaneers defense is 29th in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not thinking about their defensive ranking. I'm just thinking about who Todd Bowles is as a defensive play caller and how he typically will go.
He was always good against the run. I tell you that.
Like at the end of the day,
he had the real Reeves in New York.
They got a lot of talent on that team. So that's what I'm saying. I don't look at rankings too much. I just go based off of how I know the coaches is going to scheme up for that player that particular week. And to throw 470 is impressive. Sam did it. It would be impressive for that moment, but he's still mid.
But we also we got to also.
Dre, you got the last thought, so we can get we get to our guest. But that's a question for you all.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we got to also take it into context with Sam that Sam has had issues that CJ hasn't really had to deal with in a sense. Like CJ didn't have to deal with some of the pre-draft questions that Sam had to deal with. Like Sam he has an uphill battle, you know what I mean, as a quarterback. Like you can come in as a quarterback, you can have a couple of good games, but if people are thinking about your past and how the path that you took to get to where you are, people are looking at that and they're still skeptical of you. And that's kind of the thing that Sam is kind of fighting against. And it's not even just fans. Like honestly, like our opinions really don't matter. We're just fans. I mean, we can say he's the best or we can say he's horrible, but what matters is the people that has to make the decisions. And right now, no one knows who's that going to be next year. Like we don't know who that's going to be. So Sam has an uphill battle every day. CJ Stroud is locked in as the franchise guy up there. He can go out there, have a couple bad games, and he'll still be the guy. But, as someone pointed out in the comments, CJ Stroud only has one interception this year. Sam, I think he leads the league, or he's close to the league leaders in interceptions. He's been sacked a lot. So those are some of the questions that have still been kind of lingering. Like, is he going to be a better decision maker? Is he going to get the ball out of his hands faster? You haven't really had those questions so far with CJ Stroud. And plus, he doesn't have the uphill battle that Sam Howell has, as a quarterback here.
Hey, man. Look, it's an interesting conversation. The comparison was random. Just given that CJ, he just hit 470 on the day. So, with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into our guest. Like I mentioned earlier, Stacey Ross was going to be joining us. Stacey Ross covers the Seattle Seahawks and talks about them in some Seattle sports on Seattle Sports Radio. Let me go ahead and make sure I got the thing on. And boom, there we go. Stacey, what's going on? How you doing? Appreciate you joining us.
Hi, how are you?
I can't complain too much. I can't complain too much at all. I remember one of the conversations, because I was telling them that we had you on. I think it was a couple of years back now, but it was the Monday night game with Seattle, and we were having that conversation about Russ and how the fans were so torn on like what to do with this man who has done so much for Seattle over at that point like
almost 10 years.
10-year period. And we seen how everything is playing out in Denver now. Y'all traded him, y'all made that decision. And then you moved on to Geno Smith. And this is where we are right now, the Geno Smith era. How is everybody in Seattle handling the transition from post-Russ to now a new era with Geno, at least for the short term, leading the helm?
It's very much like live long enough to see yourself become the villain thing with Gino at this point. Like, so when Russ, at the end of Russ's time here, and like preceding the trade rumors, but people felt like there was something, it's the same vibe that NFL fans and Denver fans eventually got, that there was something about him that like wasn't super personable, and like that's not his fault. It's just who he is. He's not that personable. He's not that open. But of course, people want authenticity all the time. And so there was a distrust of him. There was this idea that he was selfish, that he wasn't getting along with Pete. And that preceded the trade stuff. So the trade happens. And of course, Seattle, who's had the Sonics taken. And at one point, the Mariners were going to leave and the Seahawks were going to leave. They're like, how dare you think you're better than us and leave? So there's nothing but hate for Russell. Everyone hated Russell. Monday Night Football hits between the Broncos and Seahawks last year. Not even that long, maybe like by Gino's first touchdown, which I think was to Will Disley, Gino chants start filling the whole stadium. And Russell had been booed when they had like a thank you message to him. Gino's suddenly like the hero. He can do no wrong. He's signing like a bajillion autographs at the end of the game. In the second half of the year, and he rightfully got comeback player of the year. Second half, there's some sloppy play that comes back in. And that's kind of the version of Gino we've seen this year. Like first half last year, Gino has not been as regular in appearance as has like a Gino that makes some decision-making errors, forces some stuff, presses, will have interceptions. Like kind of the bad version of Gino has popped up for 4 games. That being said, there's so much context around that. But now you're having, like, we have like a text toy for our radio show. Mm-hmm. It's a 4-hour show. I would say like couple times per hour minimum, you'll get someone just out of nowhere. They should bench Gino. Like it's just I think Pete Carroll is shocked that this is even a conversation. He does not see Gino as the problem, but such is life. Now people are like, put Drew in. So,
well, you mentioned context, though. I just want to follow it right quick. You mentioned context. Look, you got it's a podcast. It's not radio. You got the floor. What's that context that kind of separates the truth or the reality from like the narratives concerning Gino?
So there's some miscommunication issues that just exist by virtue of it's his second year with these guys ultimately. And it's only a third year offensive coordinator. An example of the miscommunication issues would be his interception when targeting Tyler Lockett against Baltimore was supposed to be an audible that didn't make it to Tyler. So that's something where it's like, is it ultimately on the quarterback? I don't know. If it's like supposed to get to Tyler and it gets lost along the way, maybe that was someone else, but Gino threw it to the place he thought Tyler would be. He audibled into the play and Tyler wasn't there. So there's an example of like a miscommunication, and you've seen a few of those things. And that's been like probably 2 of his interceptions top of the head that I can think of. One to DK in Cincinnati that was on DK from a miscommunication. The other big issue has been the lack of a healthy offensive line. They have had, I don't even know how many iterations of their offensive line, but they haven't had all 5 starters on the field together since like the first quarter of week 1. So I remember when they were playing the Giants in week 4, people were like, oh, Giants team has gone through so many iterations of the offensive line. In that game, the Seahawks had no starters in their original spots. They had 1 starter remaining and he had swapped from center to guard. They were able to hold it steady through like 3-4 games, but you're seeing that catch up. So if you're Washington, you're probably like licking your chops a little going, there's some weaknesses here, especially at right tackle right now where they still have backups.
Well, Stacey, I can tell you as a Washington fan, everything you're questioning, like, oh, we haven't seen the Gino we want to see yet. We're usually the cure for that. Gino will probably have that game you're waiting. he's going to probably have that game you're waiting to see this weekend.
Oh, I hope so. I think it's going to get with, I don't know how your guys' run defense is, but Carroll has been saying multiple times, like when you guys see press conferences and you get the vibe of like, oh, this is what they're saying in meetings. Like there's some messaging that like you'll just hear from all the players and you're like, okay, this is like a mantra for this week. It's been running the ball. And I think that would help Gino. Like you saw in Carolina, Gino not have his very best game. It was when he had his first interception. And Ken Walker took off in that one. It's not his most yardage, but he was such a huge factor. And that took so much pressure off of Gino from that Carolina front 7. And like, that's the kind of game I'd love to see them be able to have against Washington.
Well, yeah, what do you, I'll go ahead, AJ, you got it.
I was going to say, like Drake said, pretty much any team that gets to go against Washington that's having some sluggish
It's get
moments
right.
or lacking in their game, it
It's
is
get
a
right
get right
thing.
game. Yeah, like so I'm pretty sure they will get right, whether that be Geno Smith, Kenneth Walker, DK, whoever. But I guess my question, with you bringing up the miscommunication, it seems like maybe with Geno, the rest of the offense, those weapons with DK, Tyler, and also the offensive coordinator who happens to be a former Washington Redskin quality control assistant and is getting some buzz around NFL circles of possibly getting a head coaching opportunity next year, Shane Waldron. Is it his play calling that might be more so affecting the Seahawks offensively, or is it truly boiling down to Geno Smith maybe getting caught on with the league as far as how they plan to utilize his skills, his traits in comparison to last year where it was like, that's not the guy we're expecting to really face. Now this we have a whole year to game plan against Geno and how they utilize, DK, Tyler, and even, Jackson Smith-Njigba really hasn't had a breakout moment yet. But that's what I really wanted to ask you. Is it Shane Waldron? Is it Geno Smith being caught on by the league? Or what exactly is the offensive woes at this point?
I think it's I think Seattle can solve a lot of their offensive woes, which to me means it's more in-house than it is the rest of the league catching on. Like, Geno's going to make mistakes. And you guys know, I mean, like, I'm sure you've had starters where, there's just something that they struggle against and everyone kind of knows by the end of their career. It'll be like, oh, Russell Wilson struggles against quarters or whatever it is. Like, you're kind of used to the league finding that out. With Geno, I mean, he can be a type of quarterback that, like, if you keep him protected, if you get the run game going, he shouldn't be making a ton of mistakes. Like, the offense isn't going to call on him to do a lot. They had a lot of explosive plays with Russell Wilson, even in the 1 year that he had with Shane Waldron. You aren't seeing a ton of that this year from Seattle. I think that I like a lot of what Waldron does, especially incorporating the tight ends. He eventually became a tight end coach, obviously, from that system. So that background doesn't make any surprise. But there's like little bits and pieces missing that I think are just the byproduct of being a young offensive coordinator. Like an example, and I'm going to point to my co-host. I have to give him credit for this because he's a former player. I'm not. So I needed this insight from him. But he's a wide receiver, so he's used to looking at the game that way. And he's like, against Baltimore, one thing that this offense still sometimes lacks is in-game adjustments. So against Baltimore, they clearly thought they'd have more time to get some deep shots than they did, but they didn't adjust and have any hot routes. Like, there was no adjustment and like quick dump off options for Geno, even in the face of pressure. They just kept trying to throw it deep and like no plays could develop. And he's like, that's something that, like, I know Shane is smart enough to figure that out. I'm sure he's figuring it out looking at the tape, but like, I wonder if more experienced people adjust mid-game and they say, hey, we're throwing that game plan out. We're throwing the script out. We're adding hot routes. We're doing whatever it is. So that part of the, I think, development of the offense is still missing. So sometimes when a game goes bad, it doesn't get much better.
Yeah, and I was just gonna. Oh, go ahead. No, yeah, I was just gonna ask real quick, and this could be fantasy implications for me. I mean, but also for the team implications as well. But Jackson Smith-Njigba, the first round pick for Seattle. What's the vibe around him? Is it starting to feel like maybe he's about to have that breakout performance soon? Is he going to start getting more looks soon? What's the vibe around Seattle for him?
So I think they've been trying to feed the ball to DK a lot, and it hasn't been as effective. I don't know why. I have no idea what's going on with that, but like, they've been kind of stubborn about it. So you haven't seen Jackson get as much attention as he probably deserves. He had his best game in a loss against Cincy, and I thought that from there they would just kind of click and keep targeting him because he is so smooth. Like, he deserves more targets than he's getting just based on play alone. Like, if you just watch him run his routes, he'll still make rookie mistakes. But it doesn't quite make sense to me. I think they just are fortunate to have so many targets as an offense that, like, I'm shocked that they're able to have like 2 1,000-yard receivers. Like, they've got tight ends, they've got their running backs. Now they've got Jackson, they've got 5 good wide receivers. So I think it's just a numbers game with him. I think that they would like to get him more involved. And I think too, like, look, if DK is not going to seize all those opportunities he was getting, he was like 5 of 14 a couple games ago, then those are going to start going to other people. So I would not be surprised to see Jackson. I don't know if it'll be this game, but I think they very much would love to get him more involved.
So for me, you had mentioned just for this year and Geno and the offense, it's been a consistency issue, and that's really plagued them. I was looking at the baseline stats for Baltimore, and it was just first downs accumulated. He only had 6 on the day, and that in itself, I can imagine it's like I'm ready to cut the game off. Like it is what it is. But like overall perspective, like stats are what they are, but kind of more in detail to paint the picture that a defense with Bobby Wagner and obviously you got Leonard Williams for a reason to help out that side of the ball. Is only 25th in yards, and I'm sure there's a story behind that side of the ball too. What has been going on with the season that Seattle has had defensively as well in terms of being able to actually just help out the offense?
Yeah, so Seattle's defense started out really slow. So the yards per game is heavily weighed towards the first 3 games of the season, where the pass defense was just atrocious and no one could figure out what was going on when they had that much talent, right? Like we knew who Rick Woolen was. Devin Witherspoon obviously didn't start game 1, but starting with that Giants game, the defense started to take off. And from that game to prior to last week, they were one of the top defenses in the league. So when you look at those stats, it's not necessarily reflective of who they are. And in fact, if they didn't have that game against Baltimore when they allowed 290 something yards on the ground, I'd be like, hey, the defense you're seeing in the stats is not the defense you're going to see on Sunday. Like they're so much better. But they really took a hit. Like they looked like the worst version of themselves, the version of them that fans had seen last year when they were 30th against the run and the year before when they were 31st against the pass. I think there's some tendencies sometimes for Pete Carroll teams to I don't know if it's people finding soft spots in the zone, miscommunications, with linebackers, whatever it is. Like they just kind of fall victim to the same stuff once in a while. But the defense is getting more physical. Devin Witherspoon is really developing. I think Jamal is developing a bit more and getting a little more confident. And if Jordan Brooks is out there, he was a non-participant, but Jordan Brooks is really, really underrated as a player. He's having a solid season.
Yeah, another guy too that's coming on and coming into his own as a pass rusher is Boy Mafe, my guy. So
yeah,
that's somebody I expect to have a good game against this Washington team. And it's supposed to be raining, if I'm not mistaken, which isn't surprising in Seattle on Sunday.
It's raining. It's true. So, right now it's raining.
It will make for an interesting game for that defense. I think that they'll probably get a lot of chances to get their hands on the ball. Pause.
Well, I was say this much. I would say this much. I think at least the good thing for Seattle and even Washington, that's one of the reasons why I brought it up. I think the good thing for Seattle, even Washington, that you said, Stacey, is that the Baltimore game was kind of an anomaly in the sense of the way things were trending. It's a two-parter. What do you think about Sam Howell from your eyes and your lens, but also your general observations of how this Washington offense matches up with the Seattle defense?
Stacey, don't lie to us. Be honest. We want an honest opinion.
I'm going to be honest. I'm just to keep it 1,000. I am seeing this as a get-right game for Seattle. Not to look past Washington. I think it's going to be close. I think it'll be close, almost too close for comfort for Seahawks fans. But I just really like Seattle's roster. And when I look at Washington's roster, you guys have obviously receiving weapons that I really like. Some defensive linemen, obviously.
Yeah.
But to me, it's we talked with John Keim earlier today, and we asked him hey, outside of Sam Howell, who's the most pleasant surprise? And he was like, I don't know.
and he's not wrong, Stacey.
It's a mid roster.
So we ask that every time because we think they're gonna say oh, this rookie. If you guys were who's the most pleasant surprise, I would have said Boye Mafe. I would have been this guy's so sneaky good. He'll jump out of nowhere. And there was no one. He could think of nobody. But on the flip side, the surprise with Sam Howell is potentially like franchise altering if he's the guy. And so I obviously haven't seen him play in person. Mm-hmm. I'm really, really curious to see, if he looks like the real deal, if he has some of those special moments. It hasn't been, Seattle hasn't had that since, just by virtue of Geno being older, since Russ's like first or second year, and I wasn't covering then. So like, I always like seeing when franchises think they might have something special, because those quarterbacks are so rare. And so there's an opportunity for Washington that I'm like almost envious of if it's the real deal. But I don't know enough about Sam. I'm just going off of the two Washington reporters we spoke with being like, I think he might be.
Yeah, I think it'll be a great test for him. Being one that spent time in Seattle under the LOB moment with Cam Chancellor and stuff. That 12th man is real. Like, it's probably one of the closest atmospheres that you'll get to a collegiate level in the NFL ranks. It's real. So when you incorporate that 12th man and the weather conditions, and also how aggressive Seattle and Pete Carroll and his team are from just a physicality standpoint defensively, you could learn a lot about Sam Howell on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited to see that. And there are, without like knocking the team I cover, there are opportunities for him for sure on Sunday.
Oh, definitely.
So, Stacey, what are some of your, let's kind of actually outline this whole thing. What is some of your keys to the game, at least from Seattle's perspective?
Yeah.
Knowing your opponent, what are some of your keys to the game? And then also, I don't have no problem with you saying it's a get right game, right? Because like it's a reputation for Washington. Things happen, and for whatever reason, it's been happening so long as Ron Rivera has been the head coach here. So it is what it is. But what are some of your keys to the game for Seattle? What are y'all looking for? But also, like, what is your prediction in terms of what happens on Sunday at 4:25 Eastern?
So keys for the game would be number one, avoiding turnovers, which a key for every team everywhere. But Geno Smith has 8 in his last 4 games. Ooh. That is not good. Yeah, he has 6 interceptions. 2 of those are in the red zone. He has 2 fumbles. Like, it's just been a weird stretch of games, like the worst version of ball control. So they had, I think, 3 turnovers against Arizona, but it's the Cardinals. I don't know that you can afford those kinds of turnovers against every team, even teams that are up and down, right? Even teams that are still trying to figure themselves out. So no turnovers. Second is getting the run game going. It's just taking the pressure off of Geno. When your offensive line is banged up, you want to be as multidimensional as you can to just be able to get the defense to, I guess, buy into you a little bit more. Otherwise, they know exactly what you're doing. So looking a little more like Carolina as opposed to how they did against Baltimore. They have a guard who is maybe not playing, and they're a rookie, and he's really good. So if they don't have him, I think that there's opportunity for Washington's pass rush for sure to get involved. Those are kind of my 2 big ones. And then the third one, maybe for your fantasy team, maybe I'm rooting for a big game for JSN, like just for someone to, like, I want to see a name like pop on the stat sheet after the game, like something big needs to happen, not just for this team to win, but like you have, and it's very unfair, but you have a fan base that's like, this sounds stupid, but they're so used to their team like winning. It's not like Seattle's even been to a Super Bowl since their last visit back in Super Bowl 49, but like the bar is so unfairly high sometimes for quarterbacks, and especially right here in Seattle. So I think the fans kind of want to see something big. So I'd love a big game from JSN, big game from Geno.
Well, Stacey, I can tell you, we've been waiting a long time for some good quarterback play here in Washington. I was watching a Married with Children episode that aired in 1994, and they were talking about our quarterback issues.
No.
We haven't fixed it since.
Hey, bro, what? He ain't never said that before.
They were roasting us in a 94 episode. They said when Al Bundy got to DC, he said, "What is DC known for?" Because he called us brotherly love. And they said, "No, that's not DC." Al said, "What are they known for? What is DC known for?" They said, "Oh, the team without a quarterback." We still don't have a well, maybe Sam is the guy, but it's been years.
Can I ask you, do you guys think Sam is the guy?
I want AJ to answer first.
Yeah, let AJ answer. He's
let AJ answer first.
Yeah,
Sam has shown some positive things, but ultimately for me, and just like my background as like an agent and evaluating talent, I think that from a mental standpoint, I don't think he has it from the neck up. I think that he has arm strength. I think that he at times tries to play hero ball, but to say a franchise quarterback, I don't see that. And that's just compiling like his time at UNC and so far what he's been able to do in Washington. And I also don't think this organization is in a position to wait for him to develop. As we all know, like a lot of guys are getting moved around and shuffled in the league at quarterback, and teams are very impatient with that process. I don't think that they have the time to necessarily see if he'll be able to overcome those hurdles as far as processing the game at a faster level. There's a reason why he has taken the most sacks in the league, and that's from a mental standpoint. I just don't know if he'll ever overcome that. So I guess like the conversation in Washington right now is Sam a top 15 quarterback, which to me is an argument about mid. Like I don't want a mid quarterback.
Yeah.
I want for my team, whether it be Washington or any team that you root for, you want a top 10 quarterback. You want someone that's elite. That's my answer, and that's why they put me up here to answer that first for you, because I'm gonna tell you straight up, I think he's mid, and I'm not quite sure if he'll turn the corner for the better, and if they're in a position to even wait for that. Another element before I pass it to my co-host to answer, he's going to be a third-year player next year, so you have to make a decision on this guy sooner than later, because even from a business standpoint, his team that represents him is not going to want their guy to be a starting quarterback at this league making $1 million for the entire season. Not per game, but for the entire season. So, yeah.
And Stacey, I'm going to say before I give my opinion that we wanted AJ to go first because AJ has been consistent in his takes on Sam Howell since day one. Since day one, he's pretty much told you that Sam Howell's never going to be anything. But I mean, I don't know if I'm speaking for Mual, but I will say for me at least, it's still a wait and see. I'm probably like the oldest Washington fan of the panel. So I've been watching a long time. And as I've mentioned earlier, I haven't seen really good quarterback play for like 30 years here. I mean, Kirk Cousins, he had a pretty decent run. I mean, we wouldn't call it a superstar run or anything.
Right.
Kirk Cousins is somewhere in that 12 to 16 range of quarterbacks, maybe. But with Sam Howell, I don't want to, crown him right now because we've seen quarterbacks have good games. I mean, hell, we were just talking about Matt Flynn and how he had a 480-yard game and 6 touchdowns, and he went to Seattle and Russell.
And that got him a contract.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and also we have to acknowledge as well that we don't know who's making the decisions in Washington next year. We don't know that whoever comes in here is going to want to invest in Sam Howell or if they're going to want their own guy. So right now it's kind of hard to attach to the guy without knowing that he's going to be here for a while or he's going to be that guy. And he still has a lot of time to prove that. I mean, if he puts out more of what he's been doing the last couple of games here, I think it's going to be hard for the next person, whoever that may be, to come in and say, hey, I don't want this guy. They may say, hey, he's on a cheap contract. We may not be completely sold on him, but he can be at least a placeholder and show us that maybe he can be that guy, or we'll still get our guy while he's that bridge gap. So right now, I might speak for a lot of Commander fans and saying that, it's still a wait and see process. And I don't want to crown him or say that he can't be that guy right now. It's still too early to say so.
Hey, Stacey, Dre pretty much just told you he's mid as well.
Hey, but look though, I would say this. If AJ thinks that, I would say at the very least the book isn't closed on Sam, right? I think that he's just in this space where he's navigating as a young quarterback in the NFL, trying to get better and learn what he's saying and process what he's saying and like make building blocks to become a better quarterback. I've seen some things like through the tape where from a week to week standpoint, he's gotten better at some things. But I think there's one thing that's always now AJ mentioned arm strength, but I think arm talent is the ultimate thing. Like that's just as important. And he's made some throws that we ain't seen in years in Washington. Yeah. And like that's something where it's like somebody can try to negate it, But at the end of the day, like if you only compare the type of stuff that you didn't see from Sam to Kirk, who is like a franchise quarterback and viewed as a franchise quarterback, not saying he's an elite person, but he's viewed as a franchise quarterback, then you have something that you're working with. So for me, I'm still in wait and see mode, but I'm not going to be able to deny like some of the stuff that we're seeing. Like if he can't shake the sacks and like the boneheaded mistakes from his perspective, what he's personally responsible for, hey man, you gotta make a tough decision, and that's unfortunate. Yeah, it is what it is. But Stacey, I appreciate you joining us. I want to make sure that you get your prediction in before we give you the floor to let everything. We do it every week. But I want to make sure you get your prediction in. So that people know where you stand, and but you ain't gonna be held against it. You know, it's just a prediction.
Yeah, Monday. Wow, Stacey really messed this up. No, I'm gonna keep it relatively boring. Neither are averaging a ton of points, but they have opportunities against each other. So I'll go in the 20s. I think it's gonna be close. So I'll go like an easy, like a 24, 21 kind of game, 24-20 type.
24-20 type.
We need a winner, Stacey.
Well, sorry. I'm gonna take the Seahawks.
Oh yeah, for sure. Ain't nothing wrong with that at all.
I just think, I'm feeling a Seahawks winning this one. They're at home. That energy is real. The crowd is insane. And we interviewed Leonard Williams today, and I think that there's this human aspect to like just playing football that like I regularly forget about, which is like sometimes you got to be in the right headspace to have the right game. Not always, but sometimes. And I just think that, like guys are starting to get in the right headspace. They want to bounce back. They really want to come out and get a win. Like it just, I don't know. I think that this matches up well for Seattle. We will see, but I'll take the Seahawks.
Absolutely. AJ, Dre, let's get about here with our predictions, bro. Where we at, Dre? You got the floor first, man.
I'm with Stacey. I know Stacey didn't want to say it, but hey, I think the Seattle also wins. I mean, honestly, I see it around 27-20 this week. I just see a pissed off Seattle team after that big loss to the Ravens. They got a lot to play for. They're coming home. And historically, Washington never really plays well in Seattle. Stacey, I don't know if you were covering the team or around the time where we were losing to these guys in the playoffs every year in the mid-2000s. So that was one of the things. We've never really looked good up there. And, I think we're coming off a game where we probably might be smelling ourselves a little bit too much. And I know that's stupid to say or even crazy to think, but it's Washington. That's just what we do. And we just barely beat a mid-Patriots team. And I don't know if we're going to have that, swagger or bravado we need going into Seattle. So I got Seattle winning 27-20.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect week in the NFL scriptwriters' playbook. Kind of like when you watch your favorite TV show and you watch a mid-ass episode. And,
a filler.
If you're a Seattle Seahawks fan, get prepared because this is going to be almost like a season finale. You are going to get right. You are going to get all your pictures in. Geno Smith is going to look like an MVP. Kenneth Walker might run for 120. DK might have 2 touchdowns. JSN may get over 100 yards. It's get right season for this team to travel from DC to Seattle. I know they leave tomorrow, but still, and play in those conditions. And like I said, there's not too many NFL stadiums that replicate a college type atmosphere. I think it would be hard for Washington to go in there and get a victory if they pull it off. I think all of us on this panel will be highly impressed, but I see Seattle winning this game overall.
Look, well, hey, I peeped you ain't give a score prediction, but I'm gonna let you live, AJ. But look, man, last time I've been to Seattle, bro, for a game, Washington won on the Josh Doxson catch, right? Rob Kelly that scored, but Josh Doxson caught the ball. Yeah, it was, bro. The environment. Yeah, I'm about to say the environment in Seattle is incredible. I love it. Like, if there was one game that I would have went to and turned the road game, it would have been this one. But as much as my luck is important for Washington, doesn't matter because I'm not gonna be there. And I think Washington is not going to look good for these boys. And I don't think it would have mattered if I was there or not. I'm looking at like 31-21 Seattle.
Wow.
I don't think this one's going to be that close. I don't know how like the score ends up like coming within like a 10-point game or something like that, or even like within one possession. But I just think for Washington, they're in a situation where like even their defense got blessed because they had a terrible quarterback in Mac Jones that they went up against, or who had a terrible day.
Yeah.
I don't think Geno Smith is a terrible quarterback. I even went into this year thinking that Geno Smith was a top 10 quarterback, but it may have been the case he had a top 10 season. The way I'm hearing from Stacey. So either way, like that type of Geno is still around. So I'm gonna say 31-21 Seattle. They win the game. And Washington falls to 4-6, man. It is what it is.
Hey, Stacey, before we get out of here, can I ask you a quick question? Because we ended up signing a former Seattle Seahawks player, and I think we haven't been able to focus on him the past couple of weeks because he unfortunately got hurt. What were your thoughts of Cody Barton while he was?
Oh Lord
Seahawks?
Jesus!
So
that's a good question. I forgot.
With Cody Barton, great guy. Like we interviewed him a couple times.
That's the worst thing.
I'm about to say.
Cody
Once
Barton,
it becomes off the field before on the field.
I will say this about Cody Barton. I don't want to like dog on any players. It's always, Cody Barton, if he were a backup, would be like one of the best backups. Like you'd be like, wow, the depth that they have at linebacker. But when I think of Cody Barton, I just think of last season, specifically against Detroit, where there's this TJ Hawkinson, like 70-something yard. I don't remember if it was a touchdown or just a completion. It was mostly yards after catch, obviously. Mm-hmm. And there were just so many missed tackles. And it's not all on Cody Barton, but there was some horrible miscommunication. And Cody was right in the middle of some of those plays. So I don't know that Seahawks fans regret.
Miss him.
Yeah.
Oh, well, the good thing is he won't be playing this weekend, so we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I'm about to say that's it. Like you summed up some shit that we had going on over here. So it ain't no different.
Yeah.
It ain't no different. But hey, Stacey, that's gonna wrap it up for us. Dre, AJ, I see you in the background. You probably laughed yourself out and exited the studio on accident. But that's gonna wrap it up for us. We'll be back on Sunday to recap the game. Stacey, you can matter of fact, you can find her. What's your matter of fact, I can give you the floor. What's your handle? Because I didn't exit out of everything.
Oh, it's at my name, STACYROST.
Boom, there it is. Stacey Ross. Again, we'll be back Sunday to recap everything that happened. Hopefully it is Washington dub, but you kind of see what our predictions are. Stacey, you take care, enjoy your weekend, and be safe. I appreciate you joining us.
See you guys.
All right, there we go. Peace.